August 1st, 2023 special school board meeting of the Marion County School Board is now called to order. The purpose of the meeting is to hold a public hearing on the tentative millages and budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Mirroring and modeling the way our students begin each of their days, please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Allison Campbell, District 1.
Here.
Ms. Lauren Conrad, District 2.
Here.
Mr. Eric Cummings, District 3.
Here.
Ms. Nancy Thrower, District 4.
Here.
Dr. Sarah James, District 5.
Here.
Dr. Diane Gullett, Superintendent.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Lopez. And for the record, Reverend Cummings is joining us by telephone. So if you would also now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, could you please provide the proof of publication for this evening's meeting?
The notice for the August 1st, 2023 special school board meeting was published in the Ocala Gazette on July 21st, 2023. The proof has been attached in board docs under proof of publication.
Thank you. Superintendent Dr. Gullett, would you like to provide some opening remarks regarding the 2023-2024 fiscal year tentative millage rates and the budget received on July 24th, 2023 special school board meeting?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I would. Thank you very much. The tentative budget has not been amended since the board received it on July 24th, 2023. The proposed total millage rate is greater than the rolled back rate by 11.74%. The board has set work sessions to review the budget at 9 a.m. for the following dates: Thursday, August 3rd, which is the tentative budget general fund; Wednesday, August 9th, which is the capital projects, including the 5-year district facility program and all of the remaining funds; and finally, Thursday, August 17th, if needed. The final budget hearing is scheduled for September 8th, 2023, and at this time I would like to introduce Ms. Boston Ellis, our Chief Financial Officer, to provide a presentation to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Dr. Campbell, board members, Superintendent Dr. Gullett, thank you so much for this opportunity. We are excited to begin the process of budgeting. As you know, this started back in January when we began looking at projections for student counts and beginning to analyze what the legislation may or may not do. And then everything came together quite quickly in April. Because of the Florida Statute 200, which is the TRIM, what we call TRIM, Truth and Millage, we have specific deadlines that we have to meet, and that is what we are doing here today. So we will begin the process by reviewing what our budget goals are, as well as the objectives, and keeping in mind that this is the 30,000-foot view. You will get as much detail as you want beginning Thursday. Beginning with the general fund, we will provide a detailed explanation of changes. We'll talk a little bit about the funding formula and those changes that have occurred. But tonight, our objective is to adopt the tentative millage and to also adopt the overall tentative budget, keeping in mind that once this is set, it can be decreased, but it cannot be increased. Just to review the dates, you did receive the tentative budget and approved it for advertising purposes only on July 24th. It was published in the Star Banner on the 28th, full page ad, again, following the truth and millage requirements. Today, we have our special board meeting where you will set the millage rates and adopt the tentative budget. Our first work session is Thursday at 9 a.m., where we will review the general fund. And then on August 9th, we will look at all the rest of the funds, review them, and then August 17th, if that session is needed. Please keep in mind, you can email me, you can call with any questions that you have, and we will do our very best to have the answers to those questions at the following meeting, as we have done in the past. And then, of course, our final hearing will be on September 8th at 5:01 p.m., and we will be celebrating that day. The thing that we need to always remember is why we are here and who we are supporting. And then for the community to know we play a huge part in supporting the children of Marion County. So we will start with the community contributions. Again, this is required by the Truth in Millage. In order for us to receive state funding, we have to levy what is called the required local effort. So that is a part of the law. And so if we do nothing else, we have to levy that millage that is required from our state legislators. So the required local effort millage for the 23-24 year is 3.177. And if we include the prior year required local effort adjustment, what that means is that some of our community will go to the adjustment board, and if they are successful, that is money that we would not receive. So what happens is the following year, we are allowed, and again, this is required, to levy a millage in order to make up some of that loss from the prior year. Because as you remember, we create our budget based on the millages that are provided. So the next millage after the required local effort and the prior period required local effort adjustment, the following are considered discretionary millages. The first one is the 0.748, and it is called the discretionary operating millage. The bonus to that is if the board levies the full 0.748, we receive additional state dollars for that. And for the 23-24 year, that's an additional $13.2 million. The next is the voted millage, and that is what we refer to as our referendum. And that was a voted millage, and it is 1 mil. So for 23-24, it should generate $33.5 million. The last discretionary millage is the capital outlay. Again, this is set by the legislators. It's 1.50. And when we get to the capital projects on the 9th, we'll talk about the history of that and how it used to be 2 mills. And we just try to share with you what we would have collected if it was still at that 2 mills. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But of course, that is set by the legislators as well. And that will generate $50.2 million. So the local contribution to our total funding is $215.8 million. And our millage will be 6.439 mills. In case you're wondering about last year, the last year total amount was $185.6 million. And so we are looking at an additional $30 million in revenue from the local contribution. That is based on predominantly the 18% increase in property values from the 22-23 year to the 23-24 year. So there was an increase of about 18% in property values. Even with that, the required local effort was reduced by 0.066 mils. So as an individual, you will see on Thursday, when we talk about the impact on the homeowner, it's really going to be a reduction in what they would pay for property taxes. But even with that required local millage being reduced, and a lot of that, as I stated, is predominantly due to that increase in the property values of over 18%. These dollars represent about 35% of our district's general fund revenue. So that is a very important part of our funding. So let's talk about the revenue highlights. Again, keeping our minds focused on who these funds are going to benefit. So the highlights for 23-24 include our third year of ESSER funding. As you all know, that ends September 2024. So we're in our third year of those fundings, ESSER fundings. Sometimes it was called CARES, sometimes it's called GEARS, but it was all of that additional federal funding. You will notice that there is an increase in our unweighted full-time equivalent projection to the tune of about almost 1,700 unweighted FTE. And basically that's the students, but you also have to overlay the number of hours based on the services the student gets. So we are projecting about 1,600 additional unweighted FTE. So that is a part of the increase in our revenue. Also, there is an increase in the base student allocation of $552.33. But what I would add to that is some of our categoricals that have previously been segregated and had their own line item were rolled into the base student allocation, if that makes sense. There was also some increases in our categoricals. The teacher salary increase allocation, they added some dollars there, and they also added some additional requirements or gave us some more flexibility in how that salary increase will be calculated. That was one of the items that was rolled into the base student allocation. Transportation experienced an increase, of course, associated with the number of students projected to ride the bus. Mental health, as well as safe school initiatives, also saw an increase in their funding. In terms of decrease in funding or not funded, the digital classroom allocation was not funded. The DJJ supplement allocation was reduced. The public ed capital outlay of what we call PICO was not funded for school districts. The money will continue to flow to charter schools. And we have two items this year. We will be sharing with our charter schools a portion of the 1.5 mils, and also referendum funds will be shared with the charter schools. For local, as I stated earlier, the assessed property values increased by 18%, even though our required local effort was lower, but it did, because of that 18% increase, gave us additional funds in the referendum as well as the capital funds. So for the tentative budget for the 23-24 year, we are projecting $995,414. So $910 million is the tentative budget. For the general fund combined, which includes the operating budget, the adult education fund, as well as the referendum, that total budget is $563 million, including beginning fund balance. Food service, which is restricted for food service only, is $55 million. Special revenue other, of course, this is restricted for specific purposes. The grants, $107 million, of which almost $60 million of that is a part of the ESSER grants. So in a normal year, we would probably have about $40 to $50 million in the grants, Title I, Title II, IDEA B. So it's, I believe Dr. James said it's, I believe one of the statements you made a couple of weeks ago is that our budget is overinflated because of the ESSER funds. So again, about 60 million of that 107 is due to ESSER grants, and they will go away in another year. Debt service is actually funded by the capital, but because of the funding structure of public schools in the state of Florida, we have to show our debt as separate. So that is funded by our capital dollars, and that's about $11 million. Our capital projects funds, again, the 1.5 mil, and it is restricted for maintenance, renovation, and construction. That is about 88 million. There is some carryover in that, so it includes the ending fund balance or beginning fund balance for 23-24 as well. And then our internal service funds, which is funded by the general fund, but again, we have to reflect those dollars separately for accounting purposes. So that includes where we are self-funded for not only property and casualty, but also for our health insurance now. And that is at $85.3 million. So the tentative budget is 11.3 million more than the prior year adopted budget. We'll look at it on the pie chart, which sometimes is a little more descriptive than just having numbers. As you can see, the general fund combined is about 62% of our total budget. And the next highest is the Special Revenue Fund Other, our federal grants, which is 12%. The capital projects is next at 10%. Followed by 9% for our self-funded programs, and then the food service, 6%, and debt service at 1%. So it's just a pie graph of where you can see that the predominant budget is in our general fund operating, adult ed, as well as the referendum. This is another picture of our budget based on function, and when you think about a function, it's really who is going to benefit by this. And if you look at instructional and instructional support, if you add in school administration, transportation, and food service, which are basically direct tied into a school, that's about 69% of the functions are pretty much tied into the schools in direct and indirect way. I'm gonna go back. Okay, I think I skipped a page. So looking at our budget summary by object, which is what is being spent on the budget. And so you can see for all funds, the budget for salaries and employee benefits are about 55%, but that's all funds. When you look at the general fund combined, you'll see that it's a higher percentage. The next highest on this would be purchase services, and that includes all our contract services, whether it's a therapist or someone we've hired to perform a professional service for us. Energy at 2%, materials and supplies 6%, which does include food when we look at all funds. Our capital outlay is 11%, and then other expenditures are things like substitute costs, and some of our categoricals are about 12%. So we'll take a little bit deeper dive and look at the general fund combined. And again, that's our primary operating fund for the district. And it's separated, as I've stated prior, by the operations, operating budget, the adult education, and referendum. And these are our day-to-day costs: personnel, salary, benefits, transportation, utilities, materials and supplies, and other contracted services, whether it's speech therapy, occupational therapy, and so forth. So here's what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the general fund combined. On your left, the budget summary by fund, $563 million, including the fund balance, and 8% or $45 million of that is referendum. $10 million is the adult education program, and then 90% or $507 million is the general fund operating budget. In terms of what is spent, again, salary and benefits make up about 72% of the budgeted expenditures, and the next highest would be our purchase services of 16%, and then followed by materials and supplies, energy services, capital outlay, and then other expenditures. So what are our fiscal challenges? When we sat down to talk about what's ahead of us, and we looked back in prior years, we still have a lot of the same challenges. The enrollment uncertainty, the impact of our choice programs. A few years ago, the choice programs were limited based on a parent's income, and now it's pretty much wide open. We're looking at about $30 million of that $910 million budget will be for choice programs. And those dollars, although we have to record them as a part of our budget, we will not see. They will make the adjustment around the February count. They'll make that adjustment where they'll remove those dollars from that, but we have to budget them. So because there is uncertainty, we're not sure if it'll be 30 million, we're not sure if it'll be a little bit more, but we always set aside dollars in our fund balance calculation to catch those. 2 years ago, it was about 18 million. Last year, the choice program, Family Empowerment Scholarships, rose to about 23 million. Again, the use of an unassigned fund balance for recurring items. We have lots of conversations with you about the things we add to our budget. We want to make sure that they are not recurring items. So the things like salaries or things that we have to replace year after year, we have to be careful about having those kinds of things in our budget. Again, technology, we've seen as technology continues to change, and our refresh program continues to be between $4, $5, and $6 million. And ESSER helped out so much with the refresh, as well as all the other programs where we have continued to work on one-to-one for our students. So ESSER has been a big help for that. But we know that in a few years, when ESSER's gone, we still will have to do refresh. We still will have to replace equipment, whether it's in departments or schools, after the life has expired. Also, we continue to look at costs associated with safe school mandates. We're getting close to where we need to be in terms of safe schools, but again, these are recurring costs. We buy cameras this year, 4 or 5 years from now, we'll have to replace those cameras, and different equipment associated with keeping our students and staff safe. Currently, we receive about $3.5 million in our state allocation, but thanks to the referendum, you will see that when we do the presentation on Thursday that we have increased the dollars in the referendum to offset some of the additional costs due to safe schools. As usual, we continue to watch the economic challenges of pretend inflation, almost inflation, So we went through a period during COVID when prices were extremely high, and they seem to be coming down a little bit. But I believe we're still dealing with delayed different items coming into the district. We're still dealing with some prices that are higher just based on the economics of our country and really the world. And then, of course, I always keep putting this in the forefront of our minds, the funding cliff of the federal dollars that have served Marion County Public Schools in all school districts in Florida and the United States. Those dollars came in handy. They really helped support the classroom as we transition back to face-to-face. Those were wonderful to have in terms of supporting the needs of our students, but they will go away, and we will have to make necessary adjustments relating to those. So as a budget recap, it is balanced as required by the law. Our tentative budget is $910 million, which is a little bit over what our adopted budget was last year. But what you will see when we do the detail is you will see where some funds increased and some of them decreased. Our property values increased 18%, although the required local effort millage was 0.066 mils less than the prior year. We have limited financial resources in capital, 590 plus million, which you are all very aware of, and we're all working hard towards meeting some of those capital needs along with our community. And of course, we will continue our discussion beginning August 3rd on Thursday, the general fund, which includes all the adult ed as well as referendum. Next Wednesday, we will talk about capital and the other funds, and then August 17th if needed, and that'll be on a Thursday as well. We like to remind our community they can access our budget documents at the link that is on this report. Also, the Transparency Florida link as well. Are there any questions or comments? If not, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Gullett.
Thank you, Ms. Boston-Ellis, to you for all of your hard work and the whole team. I know this takes a lot of effort and work to pull it all together, so thank you for that. And Madam Chair, I recommend adoption of the tentative millages and the tentative budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year.
Thank you, Dr. Gullett, and thank you, Ms. Boston-Ellis, and to your team. So the question occurs on the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the following tentative millages. Required local effort millage at 3.177 mils, required prior period funding adjustment millage at 0.014 mils, discretionary millage at 0.748 mils, capital improvement millage at 1.50 mils, additional voted millage at 1 mils, for a total of 6.4390 mils. And to adopt a tentative budget amount of $910,395,414. May I have a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 tentative millages of 6.4390 as set forth in the superintendent's recommendation?
Motion to adopt the tentative millages.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower.
Second.
Second by Dr. James. I declare a public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the board concerning the proposed millages or rolled back rate? Seeing none, board, do we have any discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 tentative budget in the amount of $910,395,414?
Motion to approve the budget.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Dr. James, second by Reverend Cummings. I declare a public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the board concerning the tentative budget? Seeing and hearing none, board, do we have any additional discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Board, we can go to board comments. If anyone has any comments this evening.
I have
Okay.
one.
Vice Chair Thrower.
Thanks. I just need to find the date. All board members have been invited to an event at the Deer Run community this coming week, and I was asked to share it with other board members, and I thought, well, this is perfect because we'll be together tonight. So let me just find it real quick, and I will share it.
While Vice Chair Thrower is finding that date, Ms. Martinez Lopez, did you have anything from the board clerk's office?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Gullett, anything else for us to see?
Just, it's been great having everyone back, and we've been welcoming departments and teachers and staff back, so more to come on Thursday. Thank you.
Perfect. Reverend Cummings, did you have anything for us this evening?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Yes, it's August 4th, which I believe is this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is the Deer Run Community Center Back to School Bash, and it's become a tradition. It's a lot of fun. Games, food, fun, and free backpacks, and a lot of encouragement from Oak Crest Elementary School for their students that will be returning and some for the first time.
Awesome. Thank you, Vice Chair Thrower. Ms. Conrad, anything for us this evening?
Just real quick, I want to thank Ms. Boston Ellis for your presentation, the time that your team put into putting a budget together. As I just think about, on a small scale, our home budgets and the increase in gas and food and just how much the cost of everything is increased, and that our budget is increasing 1.26%, and what the challenges that brings to the table. So thank you for your work, to your team. I really appreciate it. I know the community also appreciates it. I also want to share that I'm looking forward to seeing the board on Sunday at Church of Hope as we go through our prayer walk. The number keeps climbing. I keep getting emails that we're going to visit more and more schools. So I want to thank you all for agreeing to participate in that with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Dr. James, anything for us this evening?
No comments. Thank you for the work from Ms. Boston Ellis' department. This is going to be great conversation, and I'm excited to continue to clarify to the community just where all of the money is and how it can be spent. Dr. Gold and I were just talking about this earlier today. There just seems to still be this misconception that our money tree is runneth over for building schools, and as I spend more time in this selection committee and looking at what we can afford and what we can't afford, and it's just, I look forward to us continuing to have this conversation and painting the picture very well, and you do a great job at it for our community and where our money is and how we can spend it, because we are really handcuffed to different line items. So I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. James. And as we wrap up comments this evening, I too echo the comments of the fellow board members about how amazing the work is that we have a balanced budget. And I know that that's a really easy thing to say and not an easy thing to do. And so I appreciate the work that you and your team put in, Ms. Boston Ellis, and all the long hours that comes behind just saying the words balanced budget. Again, very easy to say, not very easy to do when you're talking about that many zeros and that many allocations or lack thereof, because as we know, the FEFP did get quite a bit of an adjustment this year. The other thing, I am looking forward to all of this, diving into it, and as we continue in the conversation, and to Dr. James' point, be allowing the transparency to continue, and we do a great job in this district of showing where it all goes, but sometimes the message isn't always clearly received. And so as we continue to have these conversations, I think the community will become even more aware of how the money is being spent and what we can do with it, et cetera. I did want to make the board aware that this morning at 9 a.m., Dr. Gullett and I had the privilege of attending the county commission meeting with some lovely ladies from the Forest High School basketball team and several other folks from the team, Miss Debick and others. And the county brought in more school supplies than they ever have before, and they had a wonderful competition among their departments, and it was just a really fun time to be able to thank them on behalf of the board and on behalf of Dr. Gullett and her team. And it was a wonderful time. So in case you see the pictures or anything, that we just had a great time doing that and sharing with the county commission how important that relationship and collaboration is with them and how grateful we are for that. So just wanted to give another shout out to the county, and actually the county administration team is the one that won. They collected more items than any other department. So kudos to them, and thanks again for that partnership. And with that, there being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Dr. James, second by Ms. Conrad. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Meeting is adjourned at 6:06 p.m. Thank you.